All right, guys, we are going to take our lesson one step further, and we are going to talk about the distributive property using the multiplying that you guys just took a quiz on. So what I'm going to do, as you know, with the distributive property, that's when you take a number and multiply it into another quantity. So I'm going to take 4 root 5, and I'm going to multiply that times 2 root 3. Hopefully, since we just took a quiz on this, you can see that that would be 8 root 15. Now, this is where the tricky part comes in. If I look at 4 root 5 times 7, remember, we only can multiply numbers inside a square root with numbers inside a square root, or outside with outside. So technically, the 4 is the number that multiplies with the 7. If it helps you, you could write a little square root 1 here, just to help yourself remember that 4 and 7 are on the outside. They should be multiplied together. Kind of like when we put a 1 outside of a square root, you can also just put a root 1 with a whole number just as a placeholder. So when I multiply these, I end up with plus 28 root 5. I know I'm done because neither of these square roots can be broken down into any pairs, so they're not going to simplify at all. So this is my final answer. They cannot be combined. Remember, this is addition. So when it comes to addition, these are like variables. If those are not alike and they're not like terms, this is as far as you can go. Multiplying, you can do it. Adding, you cannot. All right, let's look at the next one. Now I'm taking negative 5 root 3 times 4 root 3, and I get negative 20 square root of 9. Then I'm going to take negative 5 root 3 times 8 root 2, and I get negative 40 root 6. Now the only thing we have to check for is, can we simplify? And we can. Root 9 comes out to just equal 3. So hopefully we can get a little quicker at seeing those. Maybe some of you did see that. So this just ends up becoming a 3 on the outside. Or that shortcut we talked about yesterday or earlier today, root 3 times root 3 is just 3. So this actually ends up being negative 60. Negative 20 times 3 minus 40 root 6. That 40 root 6 doesn't simplify, so that's as far as we go there. Remember, these don't combine because they are not like terms, they're not like radicals, so they cannot be added or subtracted. All right, next one. We're just going to take it a little further, and we're going to look at ones with some variables involved. So when we look at this, I am taking 4 root x to the 5th times 3 root x to the 2nd. And I get 12, 4 times 3, and if it helps, I can highlight those whole numbers on the outside, and I can highlight those terms on the inside. Then I take root x to the 5th times root x to the 2nd, and that's root x to the 7th, minus 4 technically doesn't have anything to multiply with there, so we can put a 1 as a placeholder if you'd like that. 4 times 1 is going to give me negative 4. X to the 5th times 5x is going to give me the square root of 5x to the 6th. This is really tricky because a lot of people want to take that 5 and multiply it with the 4 because they're whole numbers. But remember, whatever's inside multiplies with whatever's inside. So x to the 5th multiplies with 5x, or square root of 5x. Now, if we look at what we can simplify, I have an x to the 7th. If you think about how many pairs that is, that's going to be 3 pairs. So this is going to become 12x to the 3rd square root of x. Minus, root 5 does not simplify, but x to the 6th does, and that's going to be 3 pairs. So this becomes 4x to the 3rd root 5. Notice my numbers didn't change because there was nothing to break down, nothing to take out of the square root. It was just the exponents that could be simplified. So that's our final answer right there. Looks really ugly, but that is correct. All right, the next one. Now we're going to take 8 square root x to the 3rd into this parenthesis. Again, I'm just highlighting all of the outside numbers in one color and all the inside terms in another color. So when I do 8 root x to the 3rd times 2 root x squared, I get 16 root x to the 5th. When I take 8 root x to the 3rd times negative root 3x, again, I could put a little 1 there if that helps, but 8 doesn't have anything to multiply with, so it's going to be negative 8, remember that negative, root x to the 3rd times 3x is 3x to the 4th. Now all I can do is see, can anything simplify? X to the 5th gives me 2 pairs. So that's going to become an x squared on the outside with 1 left over on the inside. Minus 8 root 3 doesn't simplify. 3 doesn't break down to any pair. So that 8 root 3 is going to stay the same. But x to the 4th is going to be x squared on the outside. So that's my final answer right there. We're not worried about combining, especially when variables are involved, because that just gets really complicated. right, the last thing we're going to talk about with multiplying is foiling. So when we look to FOIL, we all know how to FOIL. We've all done it before. Remember, it's first, outer, inner, last. So what I'm going to do is I'm still going to go through and highlight just so we can see what numbers are on the outside, what numbers on the inside, and that can kind of help me just make sure I'm multiplying the right numbers. Foiling is just tricky because there are so many numbers and so many kind of little places where you could go wrong. So when I do this, I need to take first times first to start. So I get 15 square root 9. Now I do my outers. 5 root 3 times negative 2 root 2 is negative 10 root 6. Now I do my inners. Negative 4 root 2 times 3 root 3 is negative 12 root 6. And then negative 4 root 2, my last, times negative 2 root 2 is plus 8 square root 4. So that initial step is perfect. That's great. Now, if you get that far, awesome, but there's always going to be a little simplifying step. So the first thing we should recognize is 15 root 9, square root of 9 is 3. So this actually turns into 15 times 3, which is 45. There's also some simplifying over here. Square root of 4 is just 2. So this becomes 8 times 2, which is 16. The only other thing we have to recognize is I have like terms right here. Remember, with adding and subtracting, if the radicals match, that means they can be combined. So if I have negative 10 root 6 minus 12 root 6, that's negative 22 root 6. Lastly, I have these whole numbers I just got. Those can be combined together. So 45 plus 16 is 61. And then I'm just going to put minus 22 root 6 that way. If you had negative 22 root 6 plus 61, that's great too. All right, last one. If you want to try this on your own, go ahead and pause the video and do that. But I'm going to go ahead and walk you through this one. Again, if this is going too fast for you, or if you need to just kind of listen to it again, back it up. Maybe don't write anything. Just watch it the first time and then go through and write it. So I'm going to simplify, or not simplify, I'm going to highlight all my numbers on the outside, one color, all the numbers on the inside, another color. When I FOIL, I'm taking 7 root 5 times 3 root 5, and I get 21 root 25. Again, I'll remind you of that trick. Root 5 times root 5 is just going to end up being 5. So if you can recognize that now, it makes your work a little easier. Now I'm going to do my outers. 7 root 5 times negative 5 root 3 is negative 35 root 15. My inners, negative 4 root 3 times 3 root 5 is negative 12 root 15. And my last, negative 4 root 3 times negative 5 root 3 is plus 20 root 3. So take a second to make sure what you have matches what I have. Now let's see, what can we simplify? Oh, I messed up. Root 3 times root 3 is root 9. Sorry, my bad. Hopefully you caught me on that. All right, now when I simplify, root 25 is just 5. This is always going to happen. You're always going to be able to break this down when you take the same number times itself, or the same number times itself. This just equals 5. So if I take 21 times 5, that is 105, I think. I have a calculator right here. Second guessing. Yes, okay. Then root 9 is just 3. So 20 times 3 is going to give me 60. And then these middle ones, I can just combine. Negative 35 root 15 minus 12 root 15. Again, because these radicals are the same, when I add and subtract, I can combine those. So negative 35 minus 12 is negative 47 root 15. Now I'm one more step away from having my final answer. Looking at what I have like terms here and here. They're just whole numbers. So if I take 105 plus 60, I get 165. And then I can just bring this along and include it in my final answer. So it's 165 minus 47 root 15, or negative 47 root 15 plus 165. Either way you have it is going to be correct. The best thing you guys can do is really take your time on these. If you just kind of look at it quickly and scribble numbers down, you're bound to make a mistake. So just take your time, do it one step at a time. Every single step of this is like its own separate problem. Then when you look to combine things, it's another problem. So it's just taking everything we've learned and putting it into one longer process.